Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody again. Vice Minister Dr. Hong Van Thang from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of Vietnam, Sam Bickersteth from CDKN, Paul Desanker from the UNFCCC Secretariat, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share some reflections and next steps going out of CBA6 with you. Given my remarks yesterday about banning PowerPoints, it's now ironic that I'm going to do a PowerPoint, but I was persuaded by a young colleague of mine, Kevin, who said he could jazz them up a little bit and make them more visually exciting. So I'm going to actually use PowerPoints. But before I do that, I have a couple of very, in my view, good things to do. Firstly, to thank on behalf of all of us, our host, the government of Vietnam, particularly the Ministry of Agricultural Development, and in particular the Disaster Management Committee and all of their colleagues who have been so wonderful in getting us all here, looking after us while we've been here, and hopefully sending us off with some very fond memories. So could you all join me in thanking all of our host partners? Thank you. The second very pleasant duty I have is to announce the Solidarity Award. I mentioned this at the beginning. This is something that we thought of doing in lieu of a mitigation strategy. As you all know, a conference of this size with several hundred people flying from all over the world has a very big carbon footprint. And we are aware of that. And we know that we are causing part of the problem, and we need to think about our responsibility for doing something about it. Now, the conventional way that has now developed is to do a mitigation project somewhere and have a carbon offset. We felt that that would not necessarily be the best use of our support, since we are mainly about community-based adaptation. So we felt that instead of doing a carbon mitigation project, we would give a solidarity award to one community-based adaptation project in Vietnam. And we asked all the visitors who were going on the field trips, there were 8 field trips across Vietnam from the north to the center to the south, to look at the projects that they were looking at, visiting, and to come back with a score and a recommendation as to whether or not they should receive the Solidarity Grant. Incidentally, the grant is a $5,000 award for the community to use as they see fit for their community-based adaptations. It is a contribution from all your registration fees, so you've probably paid in the order of $15 to $20 of that $5,000 yourself, so you are making this award to them. And I'm very pleased that all our visiting groups took this job seriously. They had a lot of discussion, they came back with their scores, and the highest score was given to one project, which I'll mention in a moment. It was 88 out of 100. So this was by far the clear winner of them. And it is a project in the Hong Ca commune site, which is located in the northwest mountains of Vietnam, about 150 kilometers northwest of Hanoi. It's a project run by Save the Children, who are working in partnership with local people's committees, the Red Cross, the Disaster Management Committee, and education institutions to implement a child-centered, community-based disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation activities. So can I ask you all to applaud the winners? We won't make a ceremony here, but the funding will be made available to them. And we'll also put up some more information on that project on the website so people will know about it, and we'll publicize this event. And perhaps in future we might think about, in the series of CBA conferences, maybe doing a global award of the best CBA around the world. And if that's something that people are interested in exploring, please get back to me. So now let me move on to the concluding part of the presentation. First of all, let me say something about participation. As I said earlier, we have more than 300 participants, which is much more than we had expected, from 61 different countries. Large proportion of them come from civil society and NGOs. quite a substantial number come from academia and research institutions. Quite a few, much more than we have done in the past, have come from governments. And we have a number of UN agencies, and this time we also have a number of international media. And all of you have been doing tweets and so on, and blogs and so on. So we're quite pleased with the mix. As you know, next year's conference will be on mainstreaming climate change, so we're going to be making a special effort to bring more people from governments. And I'd like to invite all of you to start thinking about who we might invite. And I'll give you two categories of people to think about. The first category are people that you work with or are associated with or know, who are doing something very interesting in government. They may be in local government, they may be in national government. They're already doing something very interesting and innovative with local communities, and it would be nice to bring them to tell their story next year. The second category are people that we'd like to influence, more senior policymakers perhaps. We are very fortunate we had a couple of them here, but we'd like a lot more to come, and they can listen to the stories of other governments doing good things, and hopefully they will be convinced that it's a good thing for them to do. And so if you know of people to invite, if you'd like to bring people, again, do get in touch with me. Next year we'd like to engage with governments in a much more solid and substantive manner. This year, as you know, our theme was communications, and we've been doing that throughout the last 4 days. We've been doing regular tweets that have reached thousands of followers. As I said, some of our participants here have thousands of followers, so they, as individuals, they reach a lot of people, and that shows the power of individuals here. We can make a difference. We're just not sitting here. There are people out there who are interested in our thoughts and our work. There have been many blogs from many of you, and I'd like to thank all of you for doing them. Some of them I've read, and they've been excellent by and large, and it is a very, very good way to give a personal take on what's happening here, what you're seeing, what you're learning, and sharing it not just in a formal presentation, but in with a much larger audience who can read it and look at it. We've also been doing a lot of video interviews. Our team of Jamie and Adam here from One Climate have been diligently capturing many of you and interviewing you. I'd like to thank you for those interviews. They've been uploaded every day onto the website. I've already received feedback from quite a few people, particularly CBA conference attendees from previous years who didn't come this year, who are interested in following it. They've been watching the videos, and they've got back to me and said, you know, good thing, we're good to see this is happening, and we're watching the videos, and it gives them a good glimpse of what's happening. So there are people out there who are interested in this, and we'd like to thank Jamie and Adam for doing this. And then we've also done a live daily webcast in which at 6 p.m., from 6 to 7 p.m. every evening, Jamie and Adam have gone live on the internet. They've selected a number of us from the groups here, and we've had interviews, live interviews from people who sent in questions, and then answering live on the internet. And then later on, these were recorded and uploaded as well. And yesterday, we did a special theme on Africa. So we had a couple of our colleagues from Africa, Shepard from Zimbabwe and George from Zambia, who did the live webcast, and we got questions from Africa for them saying, you know, what are you doing in Hanoi that's important for Africa? And they responded. So again, we were able to connect, perhaps in a small way, but in a real way, with people all over the world, even though they're not here with us in Hanoi. And that was one of our objectives of this communications theme. So I think we've made some very good progress there. We need to do a lot more, obviously, but we're up a learning curve. Let me say a few things about the contents of the presentations. We've had a lot of feedback on this. Most of it positive, I'm glad to say. Some of it critical, and we accept the criticisms, and we'd like to respond to them. So I'll share some of them with you. The positive ones have been that there's been very rich array of presentations, wide range of topics and perspectives from donors to governments to NGOs to communities that have been presented. In terms of new thinking, the feedback I had was that people felt that the monitoring and evaluation of CBA had broken new ground from what people had been aware of before. On the less positive side, there was a criticism saying that we need to be a bit more cutting edge. We need to go beyond the show and tell stories to what are we learning. What is the latest outcomes, and where do we take ourselves? And I take that to heart. We will think more about how do we present a more state-of-the-art, cutting-edge aspects of CBA the next time around. So let me say a few things about the next steps. Where do we go from here? What we're hoping we are building as we go along in these annual conferences is a CBA community of practice. That includes, it started off primarily with civil society NGOs that were working at the community level, mainly development NGOs, for whom climate change was new, so it was understanding what is climate change, what is adaptation to climate change, is there such a thing as community-based adaptation? If so, what does it look like? So we all went up a learning curve for several years. Last year, we tried to synthesize and pull out some of the learning, and we made a special effort to bring in the academic and research community. So CBA5 last year, the theme was scaling up beyond pilots, and it was about lesson learning. And I'm pleased to say that we got quite a few academics to come to that, young researchers doing masters and PhDs, some senior researchers beginning to engage on this issue. We had some very fruitful talks, discussions, and the outcome of that, as I have mentioned already, is going to be a book that we hope will come out in the next few months. There's a flyer on the USB stick that you've got if you want to have a look at the contents and order one. It's going to be published by Routledge and EarthScan, and we hope it will make a significant contribution to the academic arena for them to realize that there's a lot of stuff happening on the ground. If you look at the academic literature, they don't even know about us. They don't know about what's happening because they're not writing about it, and if they don't write about it, then it doesn't exist. So we made a special effort last year to penetrate that impenetrable arena of academic research, and that book we hope will make a contribution. And the timing is significant in that we wanted to get it out in time to reach the 5th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is coming out in 2014 and has a deadline or a cutoff date of the end of 2012 for literature to have been published, for it to be cited in the assessment. So we're very glad that that book will come out in time for the chapters, the adaptation chapters. And there are 4 adaptation chapters in the IPCC 5th assessment report, and one of them does focus on community-based. So there's a niche there for us to get into if we publish. If we don't publish, then they can't cite us. The IPCC is very strict about what they can cite. So that, we hope, has made a significant contribution into that, and that has enhanced our community of practice, as I said. We have various websites. Many people have organizational websites. There's a dedicated website to CBA called CBA6, I'll show a screenshot of in a moment, that is hosted by the Institute for Development Studies, and Fatima. Is Fatima in the room? Could you stand up and wave? So Fatima Rajabali from IDS is our website manager. If you have any questions, please go and introduce yourself and talk to her. What we'd like, it's already got hundreds, if not thousands of people signed up, but it's still a little bit passive. So we want to make it a bit more active, and we want people to send in their own stories and engage with questions to others. So I would encourage you to sign up to it, talk to her about how you might contribute more to it, and let's make that our web-based community of practice, as it were. It doesn't have to be exclusive, but at least it's one place where we can all gather electronically. We also have a CBA layer on Google Earth. Again, I would encourage you at some point in time to go through the documentation that we've loaded onto the USB sticks that you got. There is documentation on the CBA layer on Google Earth. We now have, how many do we have? Over 100, Corinne? Over 100 CBA sites. It's a layer on Google Earth with locations identified for CBA projects that you can go over the map, click on one, and it opens a box with information on that particular project, and also directs you for who the project sponsors are and more information where you can go. And sometimes if the project has a video with it, then we embed the video and you can watch a short 3-minute video on it. And I know that many people are doing CBA projects. We would encourage you to send us your information. There's a format for sending the information. We will upload it, and hopefully by next year we will have not just a few hundred, but maybe thousands of them, and we can then showcase to the world that it's happening all over the world. This is CBA projects are taking place. So we'd like to make that Google Earth layer a much more vibrant opportunity for people. So I do encourage you to have a look at it and get in touch with us if you want to upload materials. And I'm very happy to report that during the course of this meeting, we put up sign-up sheets, and a number of you have identified cross-cutting groups that you wanted to set up, and others have signed up to it. I understand quite a few of them have managed to meet, and they've come up with strategies for going forward. These are self-motivated, self-generated activities and groups that we hope will continue to correspond with each other and take the issues that they're interested in forward over time, and then perhaps even report back next year with anything that they have been able to do. So we hope that the momentum of spending some time meeting people and networking here can be carried on beyond leaving after Hanoi, and smaller groups of people can take various things forward that they have a particular interest in. We, on our side, will be publishing a proceedings. We are not going for a book this time. It's a massive undertaking. I can tell you my colleagues worked very hard, and all the session chairs from last year's conference who became chapter authors for that gave a lot of voluntary time to write chapters. They are not easy things to do. They went through several review processes before they were finally accepted by the publishers. So it is a massive enterprise. We're not going to do it again this year. But we will be bringing out a proceedings where we will bring out the summaries of the sessions. We've asked each of the session chairs, with the help of their rapporteurs, to prepare session summaries. We're very pleased that 1 or 2 of them have actually sent them in already. So congratulations to the ones who have done so. And can I request the others to not keep it too long? While things are fresh in your mind, it's just a few pages. Just send them in to us. My colleague Hannah will then be putting them together, and we will produce a proceedings which we may or may not print, but we'll certainly have an electronic version, a PDF version, which we'll send out to everybody and give you the links to. So that's with respect to the CBA6 outputs and hopefully outcomes. This is a screenshot of the CBA Exchange website. You can see the website at the bottom there. If you want to make note of it, I encourage everybody to visit, sign up, and become part of that community of CBA engaged people. As I said, there's several hundred already on it. I can see the number. There's 1,043 members already there. So we've passed the 1,000 mark. Let's see if we can do several thousand by next year, and make it a more useful exchange of information and knowledge and questions and answers than it has been in the past. It's been more of a one-way street of providing information, but not a lot of interaction. Let's see if we can improve that. So the final slide I have here is the next CBA conference, which is a year from now. It'll be in the last week of April. It'll be in Bangladesh, and the theme is going to be mainstreaming CBA in national and local planning around the world. And as we heard in the last session here, CBA, climate change impacts and adaptation and community-based adaptation are no longer confined just to poor, vulnerable countries. Even rich countries have vulnerable communities, and those vulnerable communities need to be engaged, and some are indeed already engaging in community-based adaptation. So the reach now is not just developing countries, but also includes developed countries. And as I said, we will be making a special effort to identify examples of people, particularly in local and national governments around the world, who are doing some interesting things, and bring them with us, and then hopefully they will then also persuade others to do the same. That concludes my presentations. I'm just going to add a couple of more remarks and reflections with regard to the content of next year's program. As I mentioned, we have a theme, but even the other points in the content of the meetings, we've had feedback that, as I said, too many PowerPoints, too much one way, perhaps not enough cutting edge. So there was one criticism saying we didn't really have a session on science. So what's the latest science on CBA? So we'll certainly consider doing that. We did a film event yesterday evening. There were some very good films, but unfortunately it was sort of fag end of the day, and not many people were able to stay to the end. I think we didn't do them justice. We will think about how we can do more justice to the people who want to show videos and films next time. We may have a parallel set of videos going on. And finally, one suggestion that I received, which I liked very much, and I'm definitely going to implement, is to have a session on failures. Okay? We want to know what you did that didn't work, and tell us why it didn't work. Not about successes and you did all these good things. We've heard lots of those. But a set of examples of failures. And I'm going to make a request, particularly to the World Bank, to come to us with a failure. Thank you all very much.